Okay, guys, thank you for coming this morning to another one of our trainings, and happy Thanksgiving to those who celebrate Thanksgiving. Okay, so we're going to get into it. Today's topic is social validity. I'm sure a lot of you have sat through this training and some are new to it. And I really appreciate your participation as well. If you have anything to say, and especially our online crew, just please let us know and we will be happy to answer any questions or any experiences that you may have. We would love to hear it. So, social validity. How many people in the room are familiar with this topic? Okay, just one. Great. All right, well, let's get into it. So, what is social validity? So, social validity is a degree to which our VIPs find our involvement acceptable. And it's a subjective measure. So, it's a little bit different than our normal ABA topics that are very objective. We're putting numbers to behaviors, we're evaluating our progress based on those numbers. This social validity is a subjective measure. So it's more about how we feel towards our work. And it's not just ABA work, but our work in our vocational department, our work on the day program floor, the DSPs, program specialists. This topic is very important for all of us who work in the human services field. So it's a degree to which the VIPs find our work acceptable. All right, let's go on. So why is it important? Why is it important that we have strong social validity? Thank you, Becky. Well, the VIP is more likely to stick with treatment, right? When we talk about working with VIPs, working in the community, we want our individuals to stick with our treatment. We're spending a lot of time getting to know them. We're spending a lot of times developing behavior support plans or other plans that we might develop. And we want our VIPs to stick with treatment. It's going to lead to better outcomes. When we have high social validity, it's going to lead to better outcomes for us. Our work leads to a better quality of life for our VIPs, perhaps, and it's going to encourage others to seek treatment or help. When we have high social validity on a case, many times they'll tell their friends, tell their colleagues that, hey, what we've done here at Reaching Beyond Limits was truly impactful, was truly outstanding, which leads to more people getting help, getting quality help, which is very important. Okay. So the opposite, what could happen if we don't have good social validity? Well, they're not going to implement parts of our program, right? They're not going to kind of carry out what we developed in the behavior support plan, what we're asking them to do. Many times, what are we asking our stakeholders and VIPs to do with our behavior support plan? Very generally. Yeah, follow it. We're asking them to do work, right? We're asking them to put some effort into changing their own behaviors many times in order to change the behavior of a VIP that we may be working with. So we need them to implement all parts of the program. If we don't kind of ask and explain our interventions and make sure that they're okay with it, they may not implement parts of the program, important parts of the program that we need them to. They're likely to withdraw from service, right? They maybe call a meeting, behavior supports isn't working for this person. I'd like to withdraw or go with another provider, which we wouldn't like to see. And then, of course, share disapproval with others, right? They're going to say, hey, we didn't have a great experience. We didn't have a great experience, right? Continue, please. So, what is social validity? How do we go about this? How do we find a high level of social validity in our work? Well, we want to make sure that the VIP, the caretakers, and society at large. So we want to think about those three populations, right? The VIPs themselves, the caregivers, the people and the stakeholders who are implementing parts of the plan, the DSPs, everyone kind of working with this individual. And if society at large found out about our work, that they would be very thrilled with what we are working on. They would find it very important with what we are working on. So those are the three kind of populations that we need to consider when we're thinking about our goals, So our ultimate goals of treatment, and we think on our behavior support plan, our ultimate outcomes, right? What we're working for, where we want to lead things with our behavior support plan, our procedures. So our interventions, what we're asking this person to do for us, are they okay with it? Are they, hey, welcome, good morning. So our procedures, right? What we are asking the VIP, the stakeholders to do, do they find it meaningful? Do they find it important? And can they actually do the procedures? Do they have enough time? Do they have the necessary expertise to carry out this plan? And then our outcomes. Kind of what is the end goal of treatment? After we're done with our interventions, after we're done working with the VIP, do they find our outcomes to be meaningful as well? Are they satisfied with the results? Does anyone have any questions? Okay, let's continue. So when we're assessing for good social validity, I mean, what would we do? What do we do when we go out and meet with stakeholders, meet with VIPs? Thinking about those three areas, what should we be finding out? What kind of things should we be doing to make sure that we have high social validity? We could find out what's important to them. We could ask them these things, right? Why did you call me in to work with this person? Why was this referral made? What is important to this family? What would you like me to work on? Right? And I think starting off our FBA process, our functional behavior assessment process, with these kind of questions is a great way to help guide our practice and a great way to ensure that we have strong social validity. So here's some questions that we may ask at the very onset of services. And then throughout our work with this family or the stakeholders or the VIPs themselves. If you could change one thing today that would make someone's life better tomorrow, what would it be? And that could be a great introduction question when we're going out and conducting an FBA, because they're going to tell us what they would like to change. They would tell us what behaviors that they would like to improve upon. And it may be the VIP themselves you're asking these questions. What is it about so-and-so's name that keeps you up at night? So what are you worried about with this person? What's important to you? Working with the VIP, what would you like us to work on? And then ensure we are focusing on the VIP's benefit, right? We want to make sure that the goals we come up with, our interventions we come up, all support the VIP and all support where we want to take things with this individual. Okay. So when I'm thinking about how to go about to have strong social validity, what do I need to do? I want to make sure I could measure these things. So are the specific behavioral goals really what society wants, right? The VIPs, and not just society, but the VIPs, the important people in the VIP's life and society at large. So we talked a little bit about this already. Is what we're working on actually what society wants and our goals, right? The stakeholders, is this what they want to work on? And then finally, the VIPs themselves, are they satisfied with what the goals we came up with for treatment? Do the participants, caregivers, and other VIPs consider the treatment procedures acceptable? So what we're doing, our interventions that we put into place in our behavior support plans, do they think what we're doing is acceptable and meaningful? Our teaching methods, our reduction procedures. So how could we go about this? How could we go about making sure that, we understand kind of how we do this with our goals. They're kind of telling us the goals that they would be working on. We take it back, we meet with the BCBA perhaps, and then we could come up with a behavior support plan. Now we have some interventions. Now we have some interventions to go out and for our stakeholders to follow. What might be a good next step here when we have our treatment plan developed before we kind of implement it fully?
Review it with them.
Yeah, review what we're doing with them. Say, hey, this is what the goal is that we agreed upon. Now let's take a look at our interventions that we came up with to make sure that you guys are cool with them. Make sure that you guys can follow through with this plan. Go ahead.
I just think it's important to note that sometimes the VIP has different goals for themselves than the family does. So trying to find like a balancing act of how to meet like what the family would like the VIP to accomplish and what the VIP wants for themselves is important to social.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, how might we go about that balancing act?
I mean, I think it depends on the situation. So, like, if you had, say, the VIP really had a spending problem and the family wanted him to work on budgeting, but he wanted to work on making friends and having better social interactions, you could kind of pair those together in a way that he doesn't even realize that you're kind of doing that, but he knows that you're working on it, but you're doing it so discreetly and it's not like too much pressure on him or her that
Okay.
you kind of blend it sometimes.
Yeah, and
It depends on the goals.
I like, and it does. Every plan should be individualized to the families we're working with, to the VIPs we're working with. So you're totally right. And in that case, I like to kind of sprinkle in both. I like to add both. I like to say, hey, let's work on this. And I think it's so important, especially with our DSPs. We do a lot of work on day program floors. Um, it's so important to get their input too. They are a stakeholder, so we want to make sure they find our work meaningful as well. We want to ask them, hey, this is the goal that we've talked about for this person. And think about it, they spend a majority of the time with this VIP probably. So they have some great insights for us. But we're going to go, hey, based on the goal that we discussed earlier and where we want to kind of take things with treatment, these are the interventions I came up with. Is this something that you find meaningful? Is this something that you can actually do with your job duties? Is this something that that you feel that is important to work on? And these are kind of the discussions that we should be having ongoingly with the people we're working with. We want to make sure that at the very onset of service that they kind of tell us the goals of treatment, through our guidance, and we're going to put it through our ABA filter. But we want to make sure that they're okay with the goals that we're working on. We want to make sure they're find our interventions very meaningful. And then the final part of it is making sure that they're satisfied with the results. So it's kind of like we're concerned about three different populations here, but also three different areas in our work: our goals, our interventions, and then our outcomes of treatment. And many times, just by having this discussion ongoingly with the stakeholders, with the VIPs themselves, could be a great segue. Now, I know, we have this society piece. Are we going to kind of go out to the world and broadcast what we're working on? Probably not. Probably not. But I think, hey, if I put this work, this is kind of like my own thing that I do, that I learned from someone else, of course. But I kind of think about putting it on the television. If I were to put my session on the television and broadcast it across the world, would society find what I'm doing meaningful? And that could be a great question to kind of fulfill that criteria of this piece. And the answer should be what? Yes, that society at large would find my work meaningful. Teaching someone an alternative way to communicate because they're using challenging behaviors. Would I think society would find this work meaningful? I think so, right? So these are the three areas that we want to make sure that we're focusing on ongoingly with our treatment interventions. And it's going to lead to those amazing things. They're going to share their approval with others. They're going to stick with treatment, right? So important. Um, and there's one more. I can't. What is it? Can you go back to that slide, Jay, please? Keep going. Keep going. One more. And better outcomes. That's what I was looking for, right? Better outcomes. Better outcomes. It's going to lead to, because if they stick with treatment, theoretically, they should have better outcomes of treatment. They're more likely to stick with our treatment and then encourage others to seek treatment. So very important that we're having these ongoing talks with our stakeholders and them VIPs themselves. Does anyone have any questions about social validity or want to share an experience about it? Can you imagine us going into a case, completing our FBA process without thinking about this topic, coming up with a behavior support plan, training everyone? We might have missed important goals that the family would like us to work on. We might have missed giving them too many interventions that are too effortful with their daily schedule that they are unlikely to follow through with. And then what kind of outcome can we expect in that situation? A pretty poor one, right? So make sure we're constantly assessing this. We're constantly thinking about this idea. And when we start to get into trouble, and it could happen to any one of us on any cases where we could start, our social validity starts to weaken. And we notice that as leaders, right, Becky? We notice when this starts happening on a case. We could see what we need to do. And it's regrouping on these ideas, coming back to the social validity piece, reworking the plan, reworking the goals so we could get back on track. Any questions? All right, let's please continue. Sorry, we're jumping around a little bit. Okay, so yes, please.
Slide number 8. Thank you.
I didn't know that answer. Okay, so assessing social validity goals, and these are about the goals at all levels. So when we're writing our behavior support plan, the very first thing that we should be considering with our behavior support plan is our ultimate outcome of treatment. We want to make sure that the ultimate outcome is what the VIP wants, what the stakeholders want, what society at large wants, right? So we want to make sure we're asking those questions. We're kind of finding out what's important to these 3 areas. And they're broad goals. Their life changes based on the individual's preferences, and their broad goals. So these aren't our target behaviors. These aren't our shower 3 times a week, maybe as a target behavior for skill acquisition of mastery criteria. These are our broad goals of treatment. And they could be very simply maintain a healthy lifestyle, right? We get called into a case and we're gathering and we find out this person needs to maintain a healthier lifestyle. And, I think about this broad goal almost like a huge umbrella that's going to slowly narrow down over time as I continue to do my FBA process. And here's maintain healthy lifestyle. Where possibly could we take this as we kind of narrow it down to target behaviors? And we don't know this person, so we're just going to make up a target behavior. Perhaps it could fall under this category. But when we think about maintain a healthy lifestyle, what target behaviors can fall under that? Eating healthy. So we might have a target behavior, eating nutritious foods. What else can fall under that? Physical activity, exercise, perhaps could fall under maintain healthy lifestyle. Okay, great. How about graduate high school? So we have this broad goal. This person wants to graduate high school. Think about our vocational department, perhaps. What could be an ultimate outcome for our VIPs there? Obtaining what? Get a job, finding employment. So that could be our ultimate outcome for this individual. We could practice interview skills. So what might be a target behavior? Practice and go on.
Increasing social skills.
Okay, yeah, we could take it there. We're going to work on increasing social skills, greetings perhaps, conversations perhaps, answering interview questions perhaps, right? How about another one? Another target behavior that could fall under the employment outcome that we discussed. How about just going on? What was it?
Learning new skills in general.
Okay, learning new skills. That's totally could be it. I'm thinking about going on 3 interviews a week. Could be a goal for this person, right? Or a target behavior.
Jump to that though, because if they don't have any experience whatsoever, you'd want to build that up, and that could be your data tracking too. You wouldn't want to just automatically go in and send them for interviews. You'd want them,
Yeah,
because they might get discouraged.
you're right.
And then you would lose that social
You're right. And that's why all of our goals and our target behaviors should be individualized to the person we are working with. So I don't know. We just kind of made up a random person and we're just kind of gathering target behaviors.
I've just seen it happen in the job area where they immediately jumped in and they didn't learn those skills and it bit them in the butt.
Right. So maybe that person can benefit from a BSc referral, right? To come in and we could help with that avenue. Yes, I love that. So practice mock job interviews with your BSc, and I think BSc, DSP, or family, right? We could have that generalization piece kind of built into our plan. Yeah, yeah, great target behaviors that kind of fall under this getting a job ultimate outcome, right? And I can't give you we made up this person. And I'm not going to be the one that kind of dictates what we should be working on. I'm going to review all this with whom? Yeah, and the stakeholders, right? I'm going to follow through with this social validity piece. I'm going to help guide them, but they're ultimately going to say, this is what we want to work on. This is what we think is important. And that is what I'm going to work on. And I'm going to send it through my ABA lens as well. But that is what I'm going to work on. So what are the criteria for an ultimate outcome? Oh, they're not specific changes in behavior, right? So that's our target behaviors. That's what we're getting to eventually. And we talked about maintain a healthy lifestyle. How about graduate from high school? Can we think of a target behavior, observable, measurable target behavior from graduate from high school? Okay.
Study skills. Or like study so many times a week, set aside time, like an hour a week, maybe 2 hours a week, stuff like that to go towards those grades.
I love it. How about
Their future college.
what is that? Oh, yeah. Go on. What?
Their future college.
What about that?
Like what their next step is after high school.
Okay, so maybe like visiting colleges. I mean, we could take this anywhere. We could take this anywhere, guys, but we need to make sure we take it to what the VIP needs, right? That's where we want to take things. They're socially significant. We don't work on goals and interventions that will not benefit the VIPs themselves. We're not going to entertain those kind of ideas. If it doesn't benefit the VIP, that is not something that would be socially valid. So we want to steer clear from that, of course. Functionality, consider culture and religion. We want to make sure that we are thinking about the culture of the family. We are thinking about their religion. We are thinking about their daily lives. And we're spending time getting to know these people. And that's kind of how we figure all this out. And sometimes we could walk into traps, if we're not considering culture. I've been into people's homes, and when you get to the door, you take off the shoes. Take off your shoes. You don't walk in the house with your shoes on, and that's very important to the family. So I make sure I follow through. I'm a guest, and I want to make sure I follow through with those cultural norms. We want to make sure it's reachable. We want to make sure that, hey, this person's able to achieve this goal eventually. So that individualization piece is coming into play really strongly here, that they're able to reach this goal. And we're helping guiding them, and it's measurable. We would know if someone graduated high school. We would know through our data collection about maintaining a healthy lifestyle if they followed with our treatment strategies. Does anyone have any questions about this ultimate outcome? And just think it's this broad goal that's going to encase all of our rest of our work as we're slowly narrowing down to target behaviors. This is the broad umbrella that kind of goes above it all. And in our treatment plan, I believe ultimate outcome is one of the first things we have on our treatment plan for this exact reason. Any questions? Anything to add? Okay, thank you. Okay, we may consider, before coming up with target behaviors, an intermediate outcome. And we talked about some of these ideas already. So as we're kind of narrowing down treatment, we might say, hey, we have maintained a healthy lifestyle as an ultimate outcome. Now we want to need it, and this is optional, our intermediate outcome. We don't always need to have this, but we're going to narrow it down even more. And we have eat a balanced diet. Could be an intermediate outcome that goals could fall under. What can be another intermediate outcome that falls under maintain a healthy lifestyle? Exercise regularly could be another intermediate outcome that could fall under that.
Depending on like what area of health you're talking about.
Yeah.
It could be practicing a good hygiene routine.
Good hygiene routine. How about sleep? Right? Sleep could fall into this. We could take this a lot of different directions depending on the VIPs and the stakeholders. We have an intermediate outcome for graduating high school, develop study skills. Someone mentioned it. And then this could be for our employment goal, develop interview skills. Could be an intermediate outcome. And think we're slowly narrowing it down with the intermediate outcomes. And then finally, we have the discrete responses or the target behavior. So this is kind of our target behaviors, what we're actually collecting data upon. And if they need to be observable, they need to be measurable, right? And reference our measurement training if you want to learn more about behavioral measurement and those kind of ideas. But here we go. We have eat a balanced diet. And you see, we started off maintain healthy lifestyles, then eat a balanced diet falls underneath that. And then finally, we have target behaviors that are observable and measurable. And that's what we're working on. So here we go. Eat 7 servings of fruits or vegetables a day. So obviously, easily observable, countable, measurable. What else could be a target behavior under these goals?
Liv's one goal is healthy lifestyle and healthy eating and being more active. She would go out with her community hub workers and she would buy these colossal cookies or tortilla chips. So now they're trying to cheat, and it has been working. Instead of buying 2 things of cookies, she'll buy something healthy and a thing of cookies.
Okay.
And eventually, like, there's times where we'll not do the cookies, just like 2 healthy things.
So Jen, let me ask you, was this social validity piece followed through very strongly in this work that was done? Did they kind of ask you about your goals, talk about the interventions they were going to use, and make sure that you were okay with it?
Yeah.
Very good.
Things her activity level is not good at home. She's like any typical teen who wants to. She's not a teenager anymore, but just sit with her computer and her phone. And they made a part of her weekly activities to go out. Like she would go to Kirby Park, which we were thrilled. She'd be walking around. But now that it's cold, it's getting colder. We just went over this, and there wasn't a lot of stuff about activity. I said, how about the mall? Make it a point where we're going to go look around the mall, but we're also going to do 2 laps to stay active and get your. And so when it's not coming from me, it works. When it's coming from somebody else, yeah. And she's following through, and she's she won't admit it, but she like goes home and says, "Guess what? I bought bricks today," or "Guess what? I went here." Like she won't say she likes it, but yet she's doing it, and she's kind of proud because she's like.
Well, that's great, and it gives you the opportunity to provide reinforcement for that behavior as well. So that's great. That's great, and that's great. She's practicing those healthier choices, and and a little bit off topic, but when I'm thinking about behaviors, a lot of times I'm just thinking about doing reps. Like it's like just like going to the gym, right? We need to keep doing repetitions of a certain behavior that we're trying to learn. And that's how we get better at it. And that's how we're going to be likely to see it again in the future, right? So a lot of times we are trying to just create opportunities to practice these behaviors. So that's beautiful. I'm glad that's working out so well. Yeah.
She does go to a trainer 2 times a week. And with all the different issues we've had this year, she's had like time off. And so it has been very hard to get her back into it. But once we get back in that, about routine.
Yeah, just doing it, right?
And she doesn't like it, but she's like, well, it's trainer day, I gotta go.
That's great.
So
That's
keep
great.
going.
Well, the behavior is maintaining, right? So that's a good thing. That's a great thing. So we could use this as an example for a target behavior. Walk 2 laps, right? That could be our target behavior that falls under these ultimate outcomes and intermediate outcomes. And we can measure that. We could record that. Walk 2 laps 3 times a week, right? Exercise for 30 minutes 5 times a week, right? These are the target behaviors that we need to put in our behavior support plan that we can observe and record upon. This is our graduate goal. Study for an hour 4 times a week. Does anyone think of another target behavior that we could put in that could fall under graduate high school? And we mentioned some of them, I think.
Focusing on study skills like Pomodoro, so being able to study for 20 minutes and then taking a 10-minute break and doing that for like a 2-hour stint.
I love that. I love that. Able to record upon, observable, measurable, and it falls under our umbrella of that ultimate outcome. So great example of a target behavior that could fall under there. And I loved how you kind of added the duration dimension here that we're going to be recording upon. So important that we turn these behaviors into numbers, that we're quantifying what we're working with. Great job. And then finally, we have practice interviews with 3 different people per week. And I think Diego mentioned this target behavior that we're kind of going to do. We're going to practice interviews. Can someone give me another example of our getting employment goal? What could be a target behavior that could fall under that? That's observable and measurable. Going to bed.
Like, let's say if they have to be up to work for 7 a.m., you probably want to be by 9, 10 p.m. Get up for 6. Make sure you're out the door by a certain time, and then just being consistent with that over time.
Right. Yeah. I love that. Making sure we're in bed by a time, and we agree to the time. We don't go in and say, this is the time you need to go to bed. We're talking about it. We're talking to the caretakers. We're talking to the VIPs. What's doable? What's reachable? What's okay with them? That's where we're going to take things. And maybe we start off very slowly. Maybe right now, and what's the first step to all this? Developing a baseline, figuring out when they go to bed, in this case, right now, and then slowly dialing it back, perhaps. Slowly reaching that goal. Okay, so we talked. Go ahead.
What about like figuring out what they would like to do? So like looking at different places of employment.
Yeah, for our visiting potential places we could get jobs. I love that. If they're kind of unsure about what they want to work on, maybe we take it there. Visit, and what would we say? Visit what? A few times a week or something like that?
Yeah.
And one of the things they do with, I know the job coaches too, is like how about like fill out 4 applications per month.
Yeah.
Like one per week.
Exactly right. So we know we start off with this ultimate outcome, and we're slowly narrowing it down to target behaviors. And we're thinking about those 3 populations. What are they? The VIP. Who else? The stakeholders. And then finally, society at large. We're considering all those 3 things. And we're considering 3 things of our treatment, which are what? Our goals, our interventions, and our outcomes. So those are the 3 things that we're kind of talking to those 3 population groups about. And obviously the society piece isn't something we're going to go and broadcast to the world, right? What we're doing. But we kind of ask those questions internally. If this was on TV, would society be happy with what I'm working on? Which could be a great criteria for us to think about when we're working with VIPs. Televisionary. We put it on the We're going to put you on the news. Sorry, that was a joke. Everyone was very serious. I'm putting you on the news, right? And then we could be like, yes, put me on the news. This is very important. And that should be our answer, right? And we know we're on track. Anything else to add or any questions? Okay. So one thing that we might default to is working on behavioral cusps in our treatment. These are important targets for acquisition. They allow more efficiency in learning and allows access to a new world of reinforcers. So when I think about a behavioral cusp goal, and it helps us to prioritize behaviors, systematically select target behaviors and outcomes that are important to the individual. We talked a lot about that. When I think about a behavioral cusp and I'm talking about access to a new world of reinforcers, what skills might I be thinking about? What skills are very important in society? Yes, yes, communication goals. So when I have someone that lacks in some kind of communication, I may help guide my treatment towards a communication goal, especially if someone's having maladaptive behaviors to get their point across. I'm going to default to teach them a better way they could communicate their wants and needs. That could be a great goal to prioritize. What's something else?
Self-regulation.
Okay, self-regulation. We're helping like someone regulate their emotions and things like that.
Even like zones of regulation so that they can determine when they're in a certain area and when they need a break or when they need to communicate.
Yeah, so important for our folks that kind of have this explosive behavior. That's great. That's outstanding. What are some other things? I always think of. Go ahead. Sorry, so potty training. Yeah, I love that as a behavioral cusp. Now we could go and access the community without the fear of embarrassment, right? And when we're working, especially when we're working with kiddos as well in the near future, a lot of times school after school programs and things like that require someone to be potty trained and think about kind of the stigmatizing effects of for them to be around their peers without having that skill as well, and for adults too, for that matter. So yeah, very important. I think, the other one I think about is mobility a lot of times. Does this person need help to kind of get around? Do they need to kind of work on strengthening their legs to be able to kind of walk to the store, walk to their doctors, or at least walk out to their vehicle to get in? And sometimes our treatment goes there. And we're working with physical therapists and, of course, things like that to help guide what we're doing. And a lot of times they'll give us exercises or whatever. But mobility, accessing reinforcers, making sure that they're able to use their crutches, use their wheelchair, strengthen their legs so they could walk and get where they need to go. Anything else that we might think about for behavioral cusps that we would want to prioritize in our treatment?
I'm thinking about helping them become more adaptable to things they're not used to. I'm speaking from the job coach point of view. And one of my clients, when I presented him with the schedule of his tasks, I don't follow a schedule. So I had to help him learn, if you want to be a good employee, you need to learn to follow a schedule. So we worked on helping him adapt.
Very nice. Beautiful. Yeah. And I love how that's so individualized to this person you're thinking about. And that's exactly the approach we need to be taking as well. So great. Thank you for that. Anything else? Okay. So behavioral cusps. Okay. So some more considerations for behavioral cusps. Will the outcome lead and what we're working on to new reinforcers? If we teach this person to communicate, now they could go and communicate. Think about how many reinforcers we allowed this person to access. And my baby's in my mind as well. And I'm like, how now that he started walking and crawling all over the place, how many reinforcers is that little bugger getting into? Right? Right? Access to new contingencies, so new experiences, right? This behavioral goal will lead this person to new experiences, new environments. Are they socially valid? What we're working on, considering those three population groups and those three ideas of treatment. Generativeness. Sorry about that sex. I say that every time. I never change it. Generativeness. So are these outcomes able to generalize to new environments, new people? different environments. And of course, competition with inappropriate responses. Is what we're working on actually going to compete with those problem behaviors that we are seeing? And the answer should be to all of this, yes. So this may be, no problem. This might be a good assessment for yourself when you're going through behavior support plans, when you're working with families, when you're thinking about our goals and our target behaviors, to go through this list and ensure that the answer to all these questions is yes. Any questions about behavioral cusps and why they're so important? No problem. Don't be sorry. Thanks for coming. So there's other methods. So of course, we did a lot of talking. We did a lot of interviewing. We did a lot of kind of talking to the stakeholders, the VIPs, about this idea of social validity. There's other ways to assess it as well. We could have a lot of target behaviors to work on, and the team could rate each goal. So we could say, okay, these are the target behaviors that we've all discussed. Rate what's most important to you guys. Tell me what would be most meaningful and important to you. And we're asking the team and the VIPs themselves, and they're going to help prioritize target behaviors. Many times we kind of know what's very important at this point, but if we get stuck in this, we could use a rating scale. We could also think about a normative comparison. And what do I mean by normative comparison? Does anyone know?
I would say when you're speaking about a typically developing person, measure against that.
Well, close. Close. I am going to use the first 4 letters here, norm, and I'm going to say normal. So what is normal for people in the environment where they are? So what's normal for that environment? What's normal for our day program floor? What's normal for a place where we're working? Best Buy, I don't know. I don't know. Where do some of our folks work? Home Depot. Perkins. What's normal at Home Depot? What's normal at Perkins? Besides that big stack of pancakes. Right? So I'm considering what is normal for the environment where we are going to be learning these skills. What's normal for this person's age? Right? What is normal for this person's age? And does this impact the VIP's performance in these areas? Does this impact what we are doing in these environments where we're working on? So I think about normative comparison. What is normal in that environment? That's maybe where I want to take things. And not any further. Any questions about normative comparison? And just look at the first 4 letters, especially if it comes up on your exam mark. Norm. Normal.
You just had to throw that out there for him. Make
I
him
did.
nervous.
I don't want to make you nervous. But normal. What's normal in the environment that we're teaching those skills? What's normal for other people or peers in that environment? That could be an important criteria as well. All right, let's continue, please.
No, really quick about
Yeah, please. Sorry.
So what might be normal to the environment might also not be possible for the VIP. So it's very important to note like what they're capable of, whether it be physically or intellectually. You want to make sure that they can do whatever they can, but it also stress that if they can't hit that normal, it's not the end of the world.
Right. And one of the pieces here to think about as well is the reachable, that the person's able to reach this goal. And that's why we want to make sure we set them up for success. So that's where that reachable is a very important part of this as well. Thank you. Anything else about normative comparisons? So this is an example of a ranking scale where we're going to list target behaviors across the top. And we're going to kind of, with like our QABF, we're going to kind of ask these questions. And then the stakeholders or the VIPs themselves can rank the target behaviors to kind of give us an idea of what we might want to start with first. Typically, we don't take it here. Typically, we know before this, but just in case, just to fill up your toolbox even more, that there are scales like this to help us rank target behaviors. Any questions about this? And if you need a copy of this, it's just in the PowerPoint presentation that you could download to your computer. Just open the PowerPoint and save it to your computer. All right. That's it. Okay. So guys, thank you for coming to the training. We want to make sure that just as a recap with social validity, that we're interested in kind of making sure that our work is meaningful through asking the VIPs about the VIPs, the stakeholders in society at large, in 3 areas of treatment: our goals or our outcomes, our procedures, and then finally our outcomes, or what was the result of our treatment. And we do this through talking ongoingly about these ideas, making sure we're on the right track, making sure it's possible that they do this treatment, and also considering the other points: behavioral cusps, normative comparisons, all these other points that were in this training. This is where we start with treatment when we work with any VIP. And this is what we want to do ongoingly to ensure that we are on the right track. And if you remember, if we have high social validity, what will it lead to? Success. Very nicely said. Better outcomes. VIP will stick with treatment. And one more. Positive feedback. Was that it? They may refer others, right? Pretty good to me. Well, thank you guys so much. And again, I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you for coming this morning. Hope you guys learned something. If you have any questions, let me know.